Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again. Hope you had a great week. And if you're in the Northeast again, I'll tell you that we started out the week with a rainstorm this week, a really bad rainstorm. And then we've had pretty cold temperatures out here, but all is not lost because it's going to be warming up in the next few days. And I'm so looking forward to it. For this week's episode, there's going to be a mix of a few things that are on my mind. Some of spillover from the last episode, something that happened today, and something that happened to me personally that I really want to share with you. So sit back, relax, as I always tell you, and I'll be right back with you. So welcome back to the 247 Real Talk podcast. Again, my name is Julian Perry. I'm the host of this show. And again, for all you new watchers and listeners on the audio version and on the YouTube version, it's such a pleasure to have you with me. It's always great to see new people coming aboard and new listeners and new viewers. In the last couple of weeks, I've had a surge of viewers, at least a few dozen of you. For me, that's a surge. I know a lot of people that do social media, talk about numbers in the millions. I'm not there yet, but I'm thankful for each and every one of you as we continue to grow and build this audience and can have informative and intellectual and stimulating conversations and share our views. I'm so grateful for those of you who continue to email me and text me, those of you who have my information that way. For those of you who want to get in contact with me and to share information and to brainstorm, you can reach me by email at podcast@247realtalk.net. And please remember to like, subscribe, and please do share the podcast. So let's get the show on the road. It won't be a long one. Again, I always say that, and I try, and I keep trying to make it packed with information, but make it a little shorter each time. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't, but here we go. So the first thing that I want to talk about is a little spillover from the last episode. And in the last episode, I talked about the expulsion of George Santos, the representative from New York who was finally expelled from the House after, numerous criminal and ethical, I would say, or alleged criminal and alleged criminal and verifiable ethical violations. The ethical ones verified by his own committee or the committee within the House of Representatives. The reason I just wanted to circle back real quick on this is, I think it was yesterday, I was walking to work and listening to 1010 Wins as I usually do. And lo and behold, sort of not unexpected, I heard he's working on a plea deal with the feds. Now, this is a guy who has 23 counts, indictments against him. And these are criminal indictments. He has swindled people out of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. He's used it to buy clothes, to pay off bills, for Botox injections, for trips, for vehicles, for personal items. And to work out a plea deal, I am really interested, and I will inform you as soon as I know what kind of plea deal he gets. Because I really want to know, for you and I who get up each day, I get up at 4 a.m. each morning to go to work. For you and I who get up each day, tired, feeling like we can't make it one more day, but we get up and we get to work because we have families to feed, we have bills to pay, we have mortgages to pay, we have a life we want to live. If we had swindled people out of 1/100th of that money, remember I talked about even the his fellow member in the House of Representatives who he swindled that member and that member's mother out of $5,000 each. Had we done that, whether we would be allowed to make a plea deal on 23 counts with the feds, not only will we be in jail, we'd probably be under the jail. So, this is the double standard here, right? This is where if you're a politician, if you're well known, if you are not a minority, if you can hobnob with certain people, if you have certain people of influence in your corner, if you know somebody, you could commit the same criminal acts and get such different treatment. But this is a democracy, right? We're all equal, right? Not. But I'm not going to go any deeper into that one because we're going to wait to see what this plea deal is. And personally, he did it before the election. We found out that years ago he swindled someone in Brazil out of their money and used it for whatever. He was convicted in Brazil. They were looking for him. They couldn't find him. They found him once he announced he's running for office, and his name became visible again. We found out he swindled veterans out of their money. I want to see if this plea deal means that he gets no jail time whatsoever. Because if he gets no jail time after all of this, then we need to use this as a precedent. I'm sorry, Alexa, stop. This is what happens when you have mics listening in your studio, right? Technology. So this is what happens when, we should be able to use his deal for everyone. So the guy who is a minority, uneducated, from the streets, who swindles someone out of $10,000 or $100,000 should be able to go and say, I want the George Santos plea deal and not go to jail, right? I want to see all the details of this deal that he gets. And I hope that when we do see it, if it's unjust for all, if it's a deal that's a sweet deal just for him, that you will join me when I raise my voice and make noise, and that I bring it to the attention of the public, that you will take that episode, that you will share it and share it and share it and share it to people and tell them to share it until the noise is so loud that we will force a higher court somewhere to say this is wrong. Let's see what the deal is first. The second thing I want to touch on, which is I'm leaving the most impacted, or the thing that impacted me most, for last. So the second thing is today, the House of Representatives had a vote to formalize the impeachment inquiry into President Biden. I didn't know until recently that there was such a thing as formalizing a vote into an inquiry. I guess that's a step that I missed in previous impeachments, right? President Trump and President Clinton. I didn't know that there was such a process. And I don't really care. What is significant to me that sort of is part of the conversation that we have been having is that if you look at how voting has been going in the House of Representatives, the Democrats, for almost everything, have been voting as a body. All 200, and I think it's 212 of them, have been voting cohesively, united as a body. In this case, 84 Democrats voted along with Republicans as yay in support of the impeachment inquiry. What does that tell me personally? That tells me, number one, there may be 84 Democrats who believe that President Biden did something wrong and there's something there to be unearthed. Although so far the panel that they put together to look into President Biden has found nothing. But it says something a little different for me if I read between the lines, right? I think that podcasts like myself, people like myself, and there are many others like me who have been speaking out, that the noise we're making is beginning to be heard, maybe individually, maybe collectively. That for the next election, we want new blood. We want a Democratic candidate who is not Joe Biden. We want a Republican candidate who is not Donald Trump. And let those two battle it out for our vote. Now, what's interesting here is in such a public arena like the House of Representatives where we get to see these votes, we get 84 people who say, whatever, I'm Democrat. I'm not voting with the Democratic Party. I'm voting against our leader. Yet we can't see that on the Republican side. We looked at what happened with George Santos. We looked at 100 and something of them, even though their own ethics committee bipartisan said this guy committed this. Yet, while we did have a body of them that voted to expel him, we had a bunch of them, 100 and something of them, who voted to keep him. The point I'm making is that when it comes to President Trump, they seem very united still. Wouldn't you love to see on both sides of the aisle, or both sides of the aisle, fresh blood, new ideas, people who have a good understanding or a better understanding of who we are today and what we need, people who understand the world today and have more compassion and understanding of real life in relation to things like abortion, in relation to things like student loans, in relation to real life and real financial challenges, in relation to border issues and immigration, the migrant crisis, not these old crews of people who are definitely part of an aristocracy, who have decided that they own Washington, and therefore we must listen to whatever they have to say and do as they say, who decided that once we elected them, it's for life for them and their family, who, when they get older, just have Junior run for office to take my seat so it continues in the family. They own it. It's an aristocracy. We see, I've done an episode on what Washington looks like. I've done an episode on the ages of the people in Washington, both in the Senate and the House. I've done an episode on how long many of them have been there. It's time for new blood on both sides, since these are two major parties. Since we can't get enough people to vote for independent or libertarian or another party to be a real contender, then let's get two candidates in there who are not the two current frontrunners. I think Senator Joe Manchin or whatever wants to run for Democrats, I wish he wouldn't think about running as an independent, because he will mess up the race to me. He needs to run as a Democrat. But we need new blood on both sides of the aisle with new ideas. Come talk to us now. Tell us your vision for our lives. Tell us what you plan if you get our votes. And let's change America in the right way. Let's start with the next election. Join me whichever side of the aisle you're on to say we've had enough of the current administration and we've had enough of the past administration. What we want is a future administration by the people, for the people. So the last thing I'm going to touch on, and I don't know what I'm going to call this episode, but it's kind of going to be based on this last issue or this last thought or this last experience. So, one of my side gigs is that I write for an online magazine. I do reviews. I'm a geek, I'm a tech geek. I love gadgets all my life. And so I write reviews for companies that send gadgets. And they could be electronic gadgets, they could be anything, right? And in the online magazine, I have a little. I'm one of a team of maybe 30 writers, and there's a little bio of us with my photo and a little small paragraph snippet about me. And I've been doing this, I want to say, 6 or 7 years now. And sometimes, well, over the years, you get fans, you get readers, you get people who read, who follow, us, the writers, individually, and like our styles of writing or whatever, and they follow the reviews we do. And so we get comments. So sometime last year, I think it was, I did a review on a shower head, a rain shower head. Now, I always wanted this rain shower head. And when I bought my home, it was my intention to eventually buy a rain shower head. I remodeled one of two bathrooms. The second bathroom has not yet been remodeled. And the fixtures in it they're not really gold. They're a bronzish type of mix between bronze, pewter, whatever. I don't know how to describe the color, but the company offered me this rain head in chrome. I told them I'm sorry, I can't. I'd love to review it, but it's chrome. It won't go with my gold fixtures. Let's call it gold because that's the closest color it is to. They said it was out of stock. Very shortly after, they got back to us. They said, "Hey, the gold's in stock. Would you like to review it?" Sure. Obviously, I had to take the gold because I haven't remodeled that bathroom yet. When I do remodel it, I'm not going to go with gold fixtures. That's not really my thing. So let's fast forward. I'm sorry if I'm doing this with my earpieces feeling funny tonight. Fast forward maybe 2 years ahead. This past Sunday, I'm sitting in my vehicle outside of church waiting to go in. And I look at my phone and someone makes a comment on my review. And here's what they say. Of course he has gold fixtures. Hideous. May as well put up watermelon and chicken wallpaper. Read that to you again. Of course he has gold fixtures. May as well put up watermelon and chicken wallpaper. You know how, as a firearm instructor, I think many of you know I'm a firearm instructor. I teach people, if you're ever involved in an incident, never try to recount or relay the events because you really can't, because you go through stages of shock. And I think I actually went through stages of shock. And let me tell you why. Because it took a while to hit me, those stages of shock. Approximately 40 years ago, in the summer, I remember being in downtown Manhattan. I was walking around downtown Manhattan. It's one of the few times I'd actually gone down there to look around at the tall buildings and then enjoy the scenery and go down blocks just aimlessly, just walk around Manhattan, sightseeing. And I remember someone had said to me, never look up, because if you look up at all the tall buildings, you'll lose your orientation. I thought it was a bundle of malarkey. I looked up, and oddly enough, when I looked back down, I had no clue where I was. It actually happened to me. And so I saw these two ladies walking by, Caucasian ladies, and I felt a moment of fear because I didn't know where to go, and it was getting dark. Right, it was getting evening hours, and I don't know why the panic came over me. Like, how am I going to find my way back home? And I needed to ask for directions. And I said, "Excuse me." And that's all I got out. And she looked at me, the two ladies, and the one closest to me grabbed her purse under her arm, and they took off running. And I stood there kind of confused. And it took me a while, innocent, very innocent. I come from an innocent society, innocent background, to realize what had happened. Over the years since then, I have learned a lot. I've had a lot of conversations with you about systemic racism and what people of color experience. I heard a lot of stories. I've discussed a lot of issues with you and incidents. But I'd never again experienced something like that. And even that was an issue. There was a real interaction, right? This comment, of course, he has gold fixtures. Hideous. May as well put watermelon and chicken wallpaper, was targeted directly to me. I was so in denial, I think, in the beginning, that I almost wanted to respond to them to say, "Oh no, I didn't choose the fixtures. The house came like that." I almost, like that naive, innocent response because I couldn't absorb that someone had looked at that review and had chosen to respond out of all things with such a racist, hateful response. If you think about that, the origin of such a response, those are the kind of comments made to slaves. Watermelon, chicken wallpaper. He looked at my profile likely. He recognized I'm a person of color. And out of all the things he could have said, that's what he said. I spoke to someone, actually the owner and editor of the online magazine. And what she said to me was this had to be in her opinion, an old Caucasian person who is still living in a place where that kind of not only racism but reference is part of who they are. But it bothered me to the point where I felt that I had to mention it to all of you. Here we are in 2023. And the thing is that I have friends of mine who are really activists for equality. And I'm sure when they listen to this episode and they hear me refer to this, to them it would be like, well, okay, we've been suffering through this for years. But I'm sharing this with you because as much as I've talked to you about people suffering through these types of acts and much worse, lynchings, and on many episodes I've talked about in the past, I forgot the name of the guy's James. I forgot James. I don't want to get his name wrong. The one that was in Texas that was dragged with the chain around his neck. I had never had it directed towards me individually like that. Here we had someone who doesn't know me as a person, who had no details about my home or the fixtures or the fact that whether they pre-existed. All they had in their heart was enough hate and racist belief that the only comment they could have made was racist. And so many different thoughts crossed my mind as I went deeper into that dark hole as it bothered me. One conclusion I came to for sure is that while the color of our skin is a differentiation that many use as a catalyst for racism. The true core of racism is the hatred in our hearts as human beings. And I say this because it took me back to places I lived in my life, places in the Caribbean and South America, where I've experienced people from Africa and indentured servants or descendants of indentured servants, East Indians, in the same racist fights, even though they're just as dark as each other. One person's hair is straight and one is curly. One is African and one is East Indian. And the same hatred and racism exists with two people who look exactly the same color with the exception of the straight hair. Yet when both of those people come here, then the fight is no longer against each other, even though it exists in their own neighborhoods. But then the racism is both of them then experience racism now in the world that we live in here, which is between whites and blacks, or whites and colors, colored people, minorities. Even that's not right. People of color, let me get this right. The point being, this is an individual hatred that lives in the hearts of people. This is something that that defines a person as a hateful person. This is not something that cannot be overcome because it's something that cannot be erased. But this also defines who we are as people. And it defines that no matter how far we've come, no matter how many years have passed, no matter how much the world has changed, there are people that live in such a place of hate that any opportunity they get, even to someone they've never met, never spoken to, never experienced an interaction with, never possibly experienced kindness from, it doesn't matter. They take every opportunity they can to spew their hatred and their black hearts as an exhibit to the world of the dark place that they live in and who they really are. Suffice to say that I am so grateful for the owner and editor of the magazine who immediately blocked that reader from the site permanently. But the experience has left a mark and a memory on me. It also reminds me that each and every day, people of color, people in the LGBTQ community, women, people that are mentally challenged, homeless, so many different people experience the hatred and the unkindness of other human beings who, other than finances or the color of their skins, are exactly the same. We have to do better. The way I felt this last week is no way for human beings to feel not 1 second, much less every day of their lives. The impact that they had on me was sort of actually a benefit. Because for me and this platform I have, it just fuels me to drive and fight harder, to make sure that the world changes, or at least I make every effort I can to try to change one mind at a time, or to change as much as I can, and to enlist as many of you to show a different face to the world. I have friends of mine who are activists who stand and fight for equality, who can tell you details more than I can about the struggle of people of color. I have others who can tell you stories about the LGBTQ and what they have gone through. They have done nothing to anyone, But the hatred of others has been a battle they've had to fight and something unpleasant that they've had to deal with through no fault of their own. We're all human beings. We live our lives according to our happiness, according to what brings us joy and peace. Whatever you believe in, none of us is judge and jury. And therefore, we owe it to the world, to each other, to our happiness, to our future, to be accepting, to live a life that's filled with support and honesty, and to understand that the things that we believe that make us superior to others don't. The day will come when someone stands over us as we lie motionless, no longer a part of this world. And then all the things that we use to try to separate ourselves from others no longer matter. Remember that. From ashes, from dust, so shall we return. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you again this week. There's a lot more I have to say, but I noticed the clock on my board and I'm getting too deep and too long. I just wanted to let you know what happened and how it affected me. I just wanted to let you know that the simple words of referred to me or spewed to me about watermelon and chicken wallpaper, how powerful those simple things sound because of the meaning behind them. Thanks again for all of your support. For my growing base, for all of you new listeners, I'm so appreciative for your support. And I ask you to continue to share, to like, subscribe, and to join me in a journey that will hopefully change one mind at a time and make this world and our space a better place for our children and for those yet to come. Do have an amazing weekend and an amazing week ahead. And until we chat again, please, as always, I urge you, take care of yourselves and each other.